Welcome back to my channel. I hope you enjoy my riding videos and also the DIY dirt bike mechanic videos that I've got. And this is a DIY video. I'm going to be working on my front forks, and something that is a little unique to the YouTube world is videos on rebuilding the front fork cartridges on the KYB forks. Not many of those out there. I've looked and looked and looked, and I could never find one, so I decided I would make one. So with that, we'll get started. Also, before we get started, I would ask you to please subscribe to my channel. I would like to get to 100 subscribers this month, so let's see if we can do it. And like the video, share it, do whatever you like. Also, just note, most subscribers, I cannot see who they are unless you explicitly put in your settings to allow that. So, I don't know who any of my subscribers are. So please subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks a lot. Also, at the end of the video, I'll have a little bonus where I'll explain something that I did with this Sycra guard. So I may have mentioned from my SSS fork build project that the forks on this that I bought for this bike, for this YZ250, are from a YZ450F, and those, due to the bike weight and maybe typical rider weight, have very heavy springs in them. I think they're like 4.7 0.47 what is it, kilograms per millimeter or something like that. Fork springs, they're very heavy. So if you look at my weight, say roughly 175, senior rider, look at Racetech's website, they give they say they really should have like a 0.44. So I've noticed these were pretty stiff. Also, they were they were beating me pretty hard, like going into little chop bumps, going into turns and stuff. And so ordered me some Racetech fork springs. So you can see here, new set of springs. It comes with the springs. It comes with the preload washers if needed. And so I've got to get that set up. Okay, anyone with the KYB SSS forks may have this problem, with an older set of forks. But normally the cartridges have, they have oil, air pressure, or air that's in them. I'm sorry, they have oil and spring pressure in the top mid valve. And if you push these down and they come back up, due to the oil and air pressure and the damping inside the damper rod, that's what they're supposed to do. Okay. On this one, when I took it apart, and my purpose of taking them apart was to change the springs, this damper rod had no pressure. You can tell it immediately when you start to take it apart. If that damper rod, when you drops down, and whenever you push the fork down to get the rod to pop up to put the retainer on it, if it will not stay there, then it's this classic problem. And so the first time when I got these forks, I thought that it was due to the piston being busted. That would obviously do it, because the seals were, the piston was completely busted, around where the seals are. But apparently it's due to the seal head needing replacing. And this is not a normal replacement part, but I found there's several places you can buy these, and Technical Touch USA has them apparently, so I'm going to order some. And they're really not that expensive. Just got to figure out how to get it out. It looks like that is a 17 millimeter Allen, but a 17 millimeter Allen will not fit in there. It seems to have rounded off edges. So what I'm going to do is, I've got my Harbor Freight 17 millimeter Allen, and I'm going to get a 17 millimeter bolt first and just try this. I'm gonna get the grinder and just kind of round the edges off to the point where it'll fit in there, and just see what needs to be done, and then go down to Harbor Freight, get another set of these. I don't want to ruin the one I've got, but I could always use another set of them, and then do the work on this, and then see if it'll fit in there. I've also got to figure out how to hold this so that it doesn't, so that it'll unscrew. I don't think these are, some of these have peening on some of them. You know, on Showas, I've seen videos of them. There doesn't seem to be any peening on it. There is an O-ring inside here too. So maybe if this is peened up here somewhere, it looks like all this unscrews some way. Maybe I can hold it with the cap wrench and screw it off here. So I'll see. Also, while I'm at it, I'll probably replace these rods. You can see how the plating's worn. Supposedly that's a bad thing. And since I'm replacing these rods are available also, and honestly, they're not that expensive. I would have thought they'd be, you know, $100 a piece or something, but they're really not that expensive. So, just one thing before I get started. I see a lot of professionals online, and I don't understand this. They put these in a vise to remove this cap. And I don't know why. For one, there's no reason to ever tighten this cap, the inner cap, very tight. You just need to snug it down. It's not going anywhere. You can easily use your outer cap wrench and a 19mm wrench or socket or something and loosen this up. So that's the way I would recommend doing it, rather than putting this whole assembly in a vise. Because if you bend anything the slightest, it's going to ruin this tube. And so a normal 17mm socket will not fit in there. It's the right size, but it's got the edges on it. So what I did to experiment with this was I took a 17mm bolt and just on the grinder just knocked the edges off of it, and it fits right in. So actually the bolt with the vice grips, rather than ruining my 17mm Allen wrench, this actually is enough leverage to pop this thing out of here. So that's what I'll use. I'm going to get the torch and heat this up. I'll remove this whole assembly out of the aluminum tube, and then I'll put this piece in my clamp and remove the outer seal head. So yeah, it didn't take much at all. I heated this up with the torch till it started a little bit of smoke coming out, so I knew that was hot enough, because it was enough to start burning the little bit of oil in there. And then just use my cap wrench at the top, held it here. I couldn't do it video, and I don't have a good way to video right now with while I'm working. So, and then this just broke right loose. So it's loose. I can't do it with one hand, but it is loose, and it comes right out. Then I'll have to separate the other part. I'll do that in the vise. Okay, again, I couldn't hold it with both hands and not hurt myself. So all I did was I clamped it in the vise and in the clamp and pushed really hard, and it broke loose. So you can see this is coming coming apart now. Okay, so you can see this has the seal inside it and the bushing here. The bushing is in this head. Just note that these are available. They're not super expensive either. I would have bought just those. Actually, I did order those, but they were back ordered until May. So I just got the bushings. I'm going to, and it's actually March now. So, so I did get the bushings and the seal, and I'll be replacing those. So you can see here I've got the seal head holder in the vise, and we'll use my small screwdriver here and just kind of get on the edge of it. That's all I really have to get to hit it. So I'm going to just tap it out of there. Slip there. But just used a little micro screwdriver and just tapped on it around the edges, and it started moving and came right out. So just be patient, go slowly around, go around it and just tap a little bit at a time, and in a minute or so it's out. So I'm making a clamp for a 12.5 millimeter damper rod, and I had this piece of aluminum. I'm going to cut and make something similar to this. I had this from an old shock shaft clamp, so I'm going to make one for a 12.5 millimeter damper rod. Just cut this and then slice it with the hacksaw. Okay, time to remove the head from the rod. So I've got this in the clamp that I made. Fortunately for this rod, I'm replacing it anyway, so if I could just put the rod in the vise if I wanted, but I'll need this also to put this back on and tighten it up. And I don't want to scratch this rod because there is a, the seal has to seal here. I don't want to put any scratches in, or else it'll be messed up. So just I heated it up with the torch until I started seeing a little smoke again, and just tapped it with my wrench and a hammer, and it just came right loose. So, and you can see that while I'm taking it off, there is a thread locker in there, and that's why I had to heat that up. There's also a little O-ring and the pin that the needle that goes into the valve. So I don't want to get it too hot because I don't want to melt that O-ring either. So you can see the O-ring and the pin in there. So I'll carefully pull that out. Actually, the best way to get that out is not to pull it out, but to use the damping the rod, put it back in here, and then just carefully push it out. There it comes. It's got a spring and then an O-ring in there. All right. Okay, not much to show here, but I've got the new seal back in here. One thing, there is a little plastic piece that goes inside the seal to, I guess, just to support the seal. You would think that would be part of the seal, but the seals did not have that with it, so I had to use the ones out of the old ones. One of mine's actually cracked, but I think based on what it doesn't actually provide the seal. It actually just supports the seal. I think it's okay. I got the other one put back together and back on the tube. I did use blue Loctite here and here. Debated about red or blue. I want to get it off again later, so I use blue. And so now I'm getting ready to do the other one. But essentially, one thing that I was able to do This may look familiar. I don't know what it's out of, but it's an old piston pin that I had in my drawer, and it fits like almost perfectly here. Ideally, you would have something that they sell some bushing inserters and seal inserters that go on the inside of the bushing and are small enough on the outside to drive that bushing in. But I just put it in the freezer, put the bushing in the freezer, put it in my holder, and use this piston pin and got it started and just tapped it in there and it went right in. So should be easy to install if you've just got something, you know, square and hard that you can tap it in there with. So another thing to not forget, there are top out springs inside this tube. They go inside here, and this this metal retainer actually has a stop inside here, so it has to go in this way. You can't put it in from that way, so make sure that you put these back in the tubes. Also, like I said, I'm putting a little blue Loctite on these, on the threads, and I'll blue Loctite on the threads, and I will rub that around on the threads and then tighten everything up. I'm using my my big wrench at the top, and then the other tool that I used to get them apart to tighten it up. So next I'm going to get my damper rods out and put the piston and valve assembly on the end of it. Again, I'm going to use probably blue Loctite on this. Okay, so I've got my new rod out, and I push the pin with the O-ring back up in there. I've also got a spring that goes with it. There's a tiny spring that goes in here also. And I put this nut on here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some Loctite on these threads and tighten this up and hold it here to tighten this up. I don't want to clamp this rod at all. I could put it in the vise with my clamp and clamp it, but I don't want to mark this up at all. So I'm going to try that. I think I should be able to get it tight enough. Okay, you can see where that last clip left off, and it's kind of back to where the normal, you know, reassembly of the forks comes into play. So that was it for that video. One thing that I did do that was not shown there was I did replace a number of O-rings, and also I replaced the damper rod piston ring. So I replaced all those. Again, those were available from Technical Touch, very reasonably priced. You will not find these things on Rocky Mountain or any of the other retailers, or even from Yamaha. So, Technical Touch USA is probably the best option, I think, for getting those, and the prices seem reasonable. So the quick bonus video that I wanted to give you was looking at this brake guard. It only comes with one hole in it, and it's sometimes whenever it hits a bump, hits a rut, it'll move forward just slightly. Maybe about, I don't know, a few quarter of an inch or so at the most. I mean, it can't go too far because it's kind of locked in here, but it can move just a little bit. Of indentions here, you can see there's one here, and there was actually a little pilot indention here, and both of those line up with this bolt and this bolt. And one other thing that I did, on this older YZ250, it had a little plastic guard down at the bottom where the cable went before, and it had this washer. I modified this by drilling it slightly to put this part in here. I think I also maybe cut it slightly so the depth would be correct, and that actually makes this a lot more secure. So when you're tightening this up, it has something to tighten up against, where the normal guard just basically just pushes the plastic against the axle and it just deforms it and creates a big mess. So just trying to sando that up a little bit. So I've seen on a factory bike from a couple of years ago, they were using this bolt, and I thought about that, but I didn't. This would require a different bolt that I didn't have. So rather than do that, my first thought was to connect it to here. So what I did have was something like this, and honestly I'm not sure what this came out of, but I had a couple of these, and I shortened it and also drilled and tapped a hole in this bolt. This is a different bolt than the one that came in, and it's got a little bigger head. It's got the 12mm head versus a 10mm head. Did that for two reasons: one, for the bigger head, and also because if I destroyed this bolt I didn't want to I wanted to have something to put back in it, so if I changed my mind. So anyway, I drilled and tapped that with 5mm, and then cut this shorter. So I didn't drill very far because I didn't want to get into the shank of the bolt. Also had to trim it so that my distance would be correct to match up with the the distance that it needed here. So that was it. So this just screws in and tightens up. I had just put some blue Loctite on it, so I'll redo that. But and then also used one of these type of bolts that are used here, and I've got it right here. I do need a washer on the outside just to get my space correct, but it's it works perfectly. Now it should stay stable and not move around. So there you have it. Now this thing's secure and it shouldn't go anywhere. So thanks again for staying around to the end of the video. If you would, please like and subscribe. It would really help the channel. Like I said earlier, I'm trying to get to at least 100. A long way from any monetization, but I'd like to see 100 subscribers, and I'll have more content coming soon. Thanks a lot.